Welcome. Get comfortable. Adjust your pillow, settle into your blanket, and let yourself relax. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to explore the human body together. Not as a test, not as a challenge, but as a gentle journey through the remarkable systems that keep us alive. There's no need to memorize anything, no need to stay awake. Just listen and let the information wash over you like waves. Your body is working right now as you rest. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are breathing. Millions of cells are quietly performing their tasks, and tonight we'll learn about them all. Let's begin. Understanding the human body starts at the smallest level. Every thought, every movement, every breath begins with cells. These microscopic units are the fundamental building blocks of life. And your body contains approximately 37 trillion of them. Each cell is a world unto itself. Within its membrane lies a bustling environment. Organelles floating in cytoplasm, DNA coiled in the nucleus, mitochondria generating energy. The cell membrane acts as a gatekeeper, carefully controlling what enters and exits. Some cells live for days, others for years. But all of them share a common purpose: to sustain the larger organism of which they are a part. Cells don't work alone. They organize into tissues, cooperative groups of similar cells working toward a shared function. There are 4 primary tissue types in the human body, each with distinct characteristics. Epithelial tissue forms protective layers and linings. It covers your skin, lines your digestive tract, and forms the delicate inner surface of your blood vessels. This tissue is remarkably regenerative, constantly replacing itself as cells wear away. Connective tissue, as its name suggests, connects and supports other tissues. It includes bone, cartilage, fat, and blood. Connective tissue provides structure, stores energy, and transports nutrients throughout the body. Muscle tissue generates force and movement. Whether you're lifting your arm, digesting food, or pumping blood, muscle tissue is at work. It comes in 3 varieties: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, each tailored to specific needs. Nervous tissue transmits electrical signals throughout the body. Neurons and their supporting cells form an intricate communication network, allowing you to sense the world around you and coordinate your response. These tissues combine to form organs. Your stomach, heart, lungs, brain, each is a sophisticated structure built from multiple tissue types working in concert. And organs, in turn, organize into systems: digestive, circulatory, respiratory, nervous, and more. The beauty of this organization lies in its interconnectedness. Nothing functions in isolation. When you eat a meal, your digestive system breaks it down, your circulatory system distributes nutrients, your nervous system coordinates the process, and your muscular system moves food through your intestines. Every system depends on the others. This principle of connection extends throughout the body. Disruption in one area often creates ripples elsewhere. Consider diabetes, a condition affecting how your body processes glucose. Though primarily an endocrine disorder, it impacts wound healing, kidney function, cardiovascular health, and vision. The body does not compartmentalize the way our textbooks might suggest. Even assigning an organ to a single system feels somewhat artificial. The liver, for instance, plays roles in digestion, detoxification, and hormone production. The pancreas secretes digestive enzymes and regulates blood sugar. Most organs, like most people, wear multiple hats. So as we journey through the body's systems, remember, these divisions exist to help us understand, But in reality, everything is woven together. The body operates as a unified whole, a biological alliance maintaining balance despite constant change. Your body is obsessed with balance. Not the kind that keeps you upright, but internal balance, homeostasis. This is the stable internal environment your body works tirelessly to maintain, despite external fluctuations, temperature, water levels, calcium concentration, blood glucose, pH. All of these must stay within narrow ranges for the body to function properly. Deviate too far in either direction and problems arise. The systems of your body constantly monitor these variables and make adjustments, often without you ever noticing. Consider water balance. The cardiovascular, urinary, and lymphatic systems all participate in regulating your body's fluid levels. The cardiovascular and lymphatic systems transport fluids and monitor pressure. If you consume excess water, your blood volume increases, raising blood pressure. Your kidneys respond by producing more dilute urine, expelling the surplus. If you're dehydrated, the opposite occurs. Urine becomes concentrated, preserving every drop possible. Temperature regulation requires even more collaboration. When you overheat, perhaps during exercise or on a hot day, blood vessels near your skin dilate, allowing more blood to flow to the surface where heat can escape. Sweat glands activate, releasing moisture that evaporates and cools your skin. Your breathing quickens, releasing additional heat through your lungs. This explains the flushed face, damp skin, and rapid breathing of vigorous activity. When temperature drops, your body responds differently. Blood vessels near the skin constrict, reducing heat loss and preserving warmth in your core. This is why your fingers and toes feel cold first. Blood is being shunted away from your extremities. Your muscles begin to shiver, contracting and relaxing rapidly to generate heat. Even the fine hairs on your skin stand up, theoretically trapping an insulating layer of air, though in humans this response is more vestigial than functional. Calcium regulation operates under different rules but with the same goal: stability. Calcium is critical for numerous functions: muscle contraction, nerve signaling, blood clotting, enzyme activation. Too little calcium impairs these processes. Too much creates its own problems. You obtain calcium from food, and your small intestine absorbs it. But the real regulation happens through hormonal control. When blood calcium dips too low, the parathyroid glands release parathyroid hormone. This signals the kidneys to retain calcium rather than excrete it in urine. It also instructs cells, called osteoclasts, in your bones to break down bone tissue, releasing stored calcium into the bloodstream. When calcium levels rise too high, the thyroid gland releases calcitonin. This hormone tells the kidneys to excrete more calcium and slows the activation of vitamin D, reducing calcium absorption in the intestines. Meanwhile, cells called osteoblasts take the excess calcium and incorporate it into bone tissue. Blood glucose regulation follows a similar pattern of hormonal orchestration. The pancreas monitors glucose levels constantly. If glucose drops, perhaps between meals or during exercise, pancreatic cells release glucagon. This hormone prompts the liver to break down stored glycogen into glucose, releasing it back into circulation. The process is called glycogenolysis. When glucose levels rise after a meal, the pancreas secretes insulin instead. Insulin encourages cells throughout your body to absorb glucose and signals the liver to convert excess glucose into glycogen for storage, a process called glycogenesis. Insulin also promotes fat storage, which is why consistently elevated insulin levels can lead to weight gain. Your hunger itself plays a role in glucose regulation. When blood sugar drops, the nervous and digestive systems create sensations of emptiness and discomfort. Your stomach may growl. You might feel lightheaded or irritable. These signals compel you to eat, correcting the deficit. In all these examples, water, temperature, calcium, glucose, multiple systems cooperate to maintain equilibrium. Sensors detect changes, control centers process the information, and effectors carry out responses. It's a continuous cycle of monitoring and adjustment happening beneath your awareness every moment of your life. The body is, if nothing else, a master of teamwork. The nervous system is your body's command center and communication network rolled into one. It coordinates nearly everything you do, from conscious decisions to reflexive reactions to the regulation of internal processes you never think about. Structurally, the nervous system divides into two main parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system, or CNS, consists of the brain and spinal cord. These structures are carefully protected by bone, the brain within the skull, the spinal cord within the vertebral column. Membranes called meninges and cerebrospinal fluid provide additional cushioning and protection. The brain itself is extraordinarily complex. Its major regions include the cerebrum, the largest portion responsible for higher thought, memory, and voluntary movement. The cerebellum coordinates balance and fine motor control. The brainstem regulates vital functions like breathing and heart rate. Each region plays specialized roles, yet they all function as an integrated whole. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, extends throughout the rest of the body. It consists of cranial and spinal nerves that connect the CNS to muscles, glands, and sensory receptors. The PNS gathers information from the environment and your internal organs, transmits it to the CNS for processing, and then carries commands back out to muscles and glands. Within the PNS, there are further divisions. The somatic nervous system controls voluntary movements: walking, reaching, speaking. The autonomic nervous system manages involuntary functions: heart rate, digestion, breathing. You don't decide to increase your heart rate when you exercise. Your autonomic nervous system handles it automatically. The autonomic system itself divides into sympathetic and parasympathetic branches. The sympathetic system prepares your body for action, the famous fight or flight response. It increases heart rate, dilates pupils, redirects blood to muscles, and slows digestion. The parasympathetic system does the opposite, promoting rest and digest activities. It slows your heart, promotes digestion, and conserves energy. All of this coordination depends on neurons, the specialized cells that transmit electrical and chemical signals throughout the nervous system. Neurons vary widely in shape and size, but they share common features. The cell body, or soma, contains the nucleus and handles basic cellular functions. Dendrites extend from the soma like branches on a tree, receiving signals from other neurons. The axon, a long, thin projection, carries signals away from the soma toward other cells. Some axons are microscopic. Others extend over 1 meter in length, running from your spinal cord to your toes. At the axon's end lies the axon terminal, a specialized structure that releases neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that cross the gap between neurons and deliver signals to the next cell in line. Neurons are often described with clear roles. Dendrites receive, axons send. In reality, the picture is more complex and flexible. Under certain conditions, dendrites can transmit signals, and axons can receive them. The traditional model is useful but simplified. The point where an axon emerges from the soma is called the axon hillock. This region has a high concentration of ion channels, making it the most excitable part of the neuron and the usual starting point for electrical impulses, though it can also receive input from other neurons. Functionally, neurons fall into several categories. Sensory neurons carry information from tissues and organs into the CNS. Motor neurons transmit commands from the CNS out to muscles and glands. Interneurons, found entirely within the CNS, connect neurons to one another and account for the vast majority of neurons in your brain. Neurons can also be classified by their effect on other cells. Excitatory neurons activate their targets, prompting them to fire. Most motor neurons and sensory neurons are excitatory, often using neurotransmitters like glutamate or acetylcholine. Inhibitory neurons suppress activity in their targets, preventing them from firing. These are typically interneurons, using neurotransmitters like GABA or glycine to dampen neural activity. Modulatory neurons fine-tune responses rather than simply exciting or inhibiting. They use substances like dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine to produce subtle, complex effects on neural circuits. Each synapse, the junction between two neurons, receives both excitatory and inhibitory signals. Whether a neuron fires depends on the sum of these inputs, a process called summation. It's a constant mathematical balancing act happening billions of times every second throughout your brain. Damage to the nervous system can produce a wide range of impairments. Injury to the CNS might alter facial expressions, impair lung or bladder function, weaken limbs, or change sexual response. Peripheral nerve damage can lead to muscle weakness or atrophy, even if the muscles themselves are healthy. Headaches, sinus problems, and sore throats may also have neural origins. The nervous system is not merely a switchboard relaying signals. It processes information, generates patterns of activity, and according to some research, can produce motor commands independently of sensory input. In other words, it behaves rather like an autonomous system. Perhaps something to ponder the next time you move before thinking. While the nervous system uses electrical impulses for rapid communication, the endocrine system takes a different approach. Chemical messengers, called hormones, these substances travel through the bloodstream, reaching distant cells and coordinating responses that unfold over hours, days, or even longer. The endocrine system is a network of ductless glands scattered throughout the body. Unlike exocrine glands, which release their secretions through ducts to the body's surface or into organ cavities, endocrine glands release hormones directly into the bloodstream. It may seem improbable that a tiny chemical released by one gland could circulate through the entire body and trigger specific responses in distant tissues. Yet this occurs continuously and quite reliably. Hormones maintain homeostasis, coordinate growth and development, regulate metabolism, and oversee reproduction. The major endocrine glands include the pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, adrenal glands, pancreas, and gonads. The pituitary gland, often called the master gland, sits at the base of the brain, attached to the hypothalamus. Despite its small size, about the size of a pea, it exerts enormous influence, secreting hormones that regulate other endocrine glands throughout the body. The thyroid gland consists of two lobes connected by a narrow bridge of tissue. It sits just below the larynx, attached to the trachea. The thyroid produces hormones that regulate metabolism, influencing how quickly your body uses energy. The 4 parathyroid glands are embedded in the back of the thyroid. They regulate calcium levels in the blood, a critical function we discussed earlier. Each adrenal gland rests atop a kidney. The outer cortex produces steroid hormones involved in stress response and metabolism. The inner medulla secretes adrenaline and noradrenaline, hormones associated with the fight-or-flight response. The pancreas, located near the stomach and small intestine, serves dual roles. As an exocrine gland, it secretes digestive enzymes into the small intestine. As an endocrine gland, it releases insulin and glucagon to regulate blood glucose. The gonads, ovaries in females, testes in males, produce sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. These hormones drive the development of reproductive structures and secondary sexual characteristics. Hormones fall into 2 broad categories based on their chemical structure: steroid hormones and non-steroid hormones. Steroid hormones are lipid-based, derived from cholesterol. Because they're fat-soluble, they can pass directly through cell membranes and bind to receptors inside the cell. This allows them to influence gene expression directly. Non-steroid hormones are protein-based and water-soluble. They can't cross cell membranes easily, so they bind to receptors on the cell surface. This binding triggers a cascade of events inside the cell, ultimately producing the desired effect. Hormone regulation typically follows negative feedback loops. When hormone levels rise, the system responds by reducing production. It's a self-correcting mechanism that maintains balance. There are exceptions. Childbirth, for instance, involves positive feedback. Contractions stimulate the release of oxytocin, which intensifies contractions, which triggers more oxytocin release. This escalating loop continues until delivery. The endocrine and nervous systems both coordinate the body's activities, but their methods differ significantly. The nervous system produces rapid, localized, short-lived effects using neurotransmitters. The endocrine system produces slower, widespread, longer-lasting effects using hormones. A frightened deer provides a useful comparison. Its nervous system triggers an immediate startle response. Muscles tense, head turns, ears swivel. Simultaneously, its endocrine system floods the bloodstream with adrenaline, preparing the entire body for sustained flight. Elevated heart rate, redirected blood flow, heightened alertness. The 2 systems work in tandem, each contributing what it does best. In humans, the same principle applies. Stress activates both systems. Your nervous system heightens alertness and tenses muscles. Your endocrine system releases cortisol, which mobilizes energy stores and suppresses non-essential functions like digestion and reproduction. The endocrine system establishes a chemical connection from the hypothalamus in the brain to virtually every organ governing metabolism, development, and reproduction. Without it, basic life functions would be impossible. Growth would cease. Temperature regulation would fail. Reproduction couldn't occur, and metabolism would grind to a halt. It's a quieter system than the nervous system, lacking the drama of electrical impulses firing at hundreds of meters per second. But its influence is no less profound. Every cell in your body responds to hormonal signals, adjusting its activity to meet the body's changing needs. Reproduction is the defining feature that separates living organisms from non-living matter. Paradoxically, while essential for the survival of a species, it's not required for an individual to survive. You can live a full, healthy life without reproducing. The species, however, cannot. Human reproduction involves two sex cells, sperm from the male and a secondary oocyte from the female. Only after fertilization does that secondary oocyte officially become an ovum or egg, a technical detail often lost in casual conversation. The male and female reproductive systems are specialized to produce, nourish, transport, and unite these gametes. Though their structures differ significantly, both serve the same ultimate purpose. The male reproductive system spans both inside and outside the pelvic cavity. The testes, where sperm are produced, hang in the scrotum outside the body. This external positioning is crucial. Sperm production requires a temperature slightly cooler than normal body temperature. Within each testis, tightly coiled tubules called seminiferous tubules produce sperm continuously after puberty. Between these tubules lie Leydig cells, which produce testosterone. Once produced, sperm travel through a series of ducts. They first enter the epididymis, a coiled tube lying just outside each testis, where they mature and are stored. During ejaculation, sperm travel through the vas deferens, a muscular tube about 30 centimeters long. The vas deferens transports sperm from the epididymis to the ejaculatory duct, where they mix with fluids from accessory glands. 3 glands contribute secretions that become semen, the fluid that transports sperm. The seminal vesicles, located near the base of the bladder, contribute 65 to 75% of seminal fluid. This fluid contains fructose to nourish sperm, enzymes, mucus, and signaling molecules. The prostate gland encircles the urethra just below the bladder. It contributes a clear, slightly alkaline fluid that neutralizes the acidic environment of the vagina, accounting for about 25 to 30% of semen. The bulbourethral glands, small pea-sized structures behind the prostate, secrete a slippery fluid during arousal. This pre-ejaculate lubricates the urethra and neutralizes any lingering acidic urine. The urethra serves a dual purpose in males. It conveys both urine and semen, though not simultaneously. The penis, made of erectile tissue, becomes rigid when blood fills its internal chambers, enabling it to deliver semen during intercourse. The female reproductive system is housed entirely within the pelvic cavity. It performs several essential functions: producing eggs, secreting sex hormones, receiving sperm, protecting and nourishing a fertilized egg during pregnancy, delivering the baby, and providing nourishment afterward through breastfeeding. The ovaries are the primary reproductive organs. These small almond-shaped structures lie on either side of the uterus. They contain ovarian follicles, each housing an immature egg. Unlike males who produce sperm continuously after puberty, females are born with all the eggs they will ever have. During fetal development, the ovaries form 6 to 7 million immature egg cells. These cells begin meiosis but pause in prophase 1, remaining arrested until puberty. At birth, a female has about 1 million eggs. By puberty, this number drops to 400,000 to 500,000. Over her reproductive life, only about 500 to 1,000 will actually be ovulated. The rest degenerate over time. Each month after puberty, typically 1 egg resumes meiosis. It completes the first division, forming a secondary oocyte and a small polar body that degenerates. The secondary oocyte then pauses again, this time in metaphase 2. Only if fertilization occurs does meiosis complete, producing a mature ovum and another polar body. The fallopian tubes extend from the sides of the uterus towards the ovaries. Though not directly connected, these tubes transport eggs from the ovaries to the uterus. Fertilization typically occurs here in the fallopian tube. The uterus is a muscular, pear-shaped organ where fetal development takes place. Its upper portion is called the fundus. The lower, narrower portion is the cervix, which opens into the vagina. The vagina is a muscular canal that serves multiple functions. It receives sperm during intercourse, provides a passage for menstrual discharge, and forms the birth canal during delivery. External structures, collectively called the vulva, include the labia majora and minora, mons pubis, clitoris, and vestibule, along with associated glands. These structures are heavily innervated and contribute to sexual arousal and pleasure. The perineum, the area between the vaginal opening and anus, supports pelvic floor muscles and can be affected during childbirth. The mammary glands, though not technically part of the reproductive tract, play a vital role in reproduction by producing milk to nourish the infant. Shared origins, different paths. Though male and female reproductive systems appear vastly different, they share foundational similarities. Both develop from homologous embryonic tissue. Both possess gonads that produce gametes. Both undergo dramatic changes during puberty triggered by hormonal signals. The primary functional difference lies in gamete production. Males produce millions of sperm continuously after puberty. Females are born with a finite number of eggs, which gradually decline in number and quality with age. This difference has profound implications. Male fertility can persist well into old age, whereas female fertility typically ends around age 50 with menopause. When ovulation and menstruation cease, the eggs present at birth age as the woman ages. They're exposed to decades of environmental factors, which explains the increased risk of chromosomal abnormalities in children born to older mothers. When sperm meets egg, usually in the fallopian tube, fertilization occurs. If all proceeds as intended, the resulting embryo travels to the uterus, implants in the uterine wall, and begins 9 months of development. It's a biological choreography perfected over millions of years of what science call evolution, requiring precise timing, optimal conditions, and more than a little luck. Our experience of reality depends entirely on our senses. These physiological channels allow us to detect, interpret, and respond to stimuli from the world around us and within us. Most people learn about the 5 senses in childhood: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. In reality, humans have at least 7 distinct senses, possibly more. Neurologists continue to debate the precise number, partly because the boundaries between sensory modalities sometimes blur. Senses divide into 2 broad categories: exteroceptors, which perceive stimuli from the external environment, smell, taste, sight, hearing, touch, and interoceptors, which monitor internal conditions like blood pressure, glucose levels, pH, and proprioception, your sense of body position. Sensory experience is inherently subjective. What one person finds delicious, another finds repulsive. This variation exists because the brain interprets incoming stimuli uniquely based on biological differences, past experiences, and even genetic factors. Taste or gustation and smell or olfaction both rely on chemoreception, detecting specific chemical compounds. Taste is perceived through taste buds distributed across the tongue, soft palate, and even the epiglottis. These signals travel to the brain via 3 cranial nerves. The facial nerve handles the front 2/3 of the tongue, the glossopharyngeal nerve manages the rear third, and the vagus nerve picks up taste from the throat. All taste buds can detect all 5 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Though some areas may be slightly more sensitive to certain tastes, the old tongue map showing distinct regions for each taste is a myth. Smell operates through olfactory receptors in the nasal cavity. Airborne molecules dissolve on the moist epithelium, triggering these receptors, which send signals to the brain via the olfactory nerve. Remarkably, up to 90% of what we perceive as taste actually comes from smell. This explains why food tastes bland when you have a cold. Your sense of smell is impaired. Humans have about 347 functional odor receptor genes, though this varies among individuals due to genetic mutations. One common example is the inability of some people to smell androstenone, a molecule found in male sweat. Each olfactory receptor neuron expresses just one type of odor receptor, creating a lock and key mechanism. When the right molecule binds, the neuron fires. The brain combines signals from many different receptor types to create the perception of complex smells. Olfactory receptor neurons are replaced roughly every 40 days by neural stem cells in the olfactory epithelium. This continuous regeneration represents one of the few examples of adult neurogenesis in the central nervous system. The olfactory system connects strongly to memory, particularly emotional memory. This occurs because olfactory signals pass through the limbic system and hippocampus brain regions involved in emotion and memory. This explains why certain smells can powerfully evoke past experiences. The scent of cookies baking might transport you instantly to your grandmother's kitchen. Vision is a partnership between the eyes and brain. While the eyes capture visual stimuli, the brain processes at least a third of incoming visual information, transforming light into meaning. The human eye is roughly an inch in diameter, shaped like a slightly elongated sphere. It resides in a protective bony socket in the skull. Structurally, the eye has 3 concentric layers. The outermost is the sclera, a tough, fibrous tissue that gives the eye its shape, the white of the eye. At the front, the sclera becomes transparent, forming the cornea, which acts as the eye's outermost lens. Beneath the sclera lies the choroid, a vascular layer supplying oxygen and nutrients to the retina. It contains pigmented cells that prevent light from scattering inside the eye, which would blur vision. Light enters through the pupil, an opening in the choroid, whose size is regulated by the iris. The iris adjusts based on ambient light, contracting in brightness to make the pupil smaller, dilating in darkness to make it larger. Behind the pupil sits the lens, composed largely of proteins, called crystallins. The lens adjusts its shape, becoming thicker or thinner, to focus light on the retina, a process called accommodation. The retina, the eye's innermost layer, contains photoreceptor cells that convert light into electrical signals. These signals travel via the optic nerve to the brain for processing. The eye must also cope with motion. The brain cannot process images clearly if they drift across the retina too quickly. To compensate, it adjusts eye position in response to head movement, keeping the image centered on the fovea, the retina's most sensitive area. With 2 eyes, coordination becomes critical. Both must aim precisely, so the same object projects onto corresponding spots on each retina. If alignment is off, double vision results. Depth perception, the ability to see in 3 dimensions and judge distances draws on both binocular and monocular cues. Binocular vision provides strong depth information by comparing slightly different images from each eye. But monocular cues like perspective, shading, and motion parallax also contribute significantly. The ear serves dual functions, detecting sound and regulating balance. Both rely on mechanoreceptors, specialized hair cells with stereocilia that respond to physical movement. The ear divides into 3 regions: outer, middle, and inner. The outer ear includes the pinna, the visible ear, the ear canal, and the outer surface of the eardrum. Sound waves travel through the ear canal and vibrate the eardrum. The middle ear contains 3 tiny bones: the malleus, hammer, incus, anvil, and stapes, stirrup. These bones form a chain that transmits vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. The stapes, the smallest bone in the human body, presses against the oval window, setting fluid in the inner ear into motion. The middle ear also contains the eustachian tube, which connects to the back of the throat and equalizes air pressure between the middle ear and the outside environment. The inner ear contains the cochlea, responsible for hearing, and the vestibular apparatus, which regulates balance. The cochlea is a spiral structure containing 3 fluid-filled chambers. When the stapes vibrates the oval window, it creates waves in this fluid. These waves stimulate hair cells in the organ of Corti, which converts mechanical motion into electrical signals. Sound is processed based on frequency. High-frequency sounds activate hair cells near the base of the cochlea. Low-frequency sounds travel farther, activating cells near the apex. The brain interprets these patterns as different pitches. Humans typically hear sounds from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, though sensitivity to high frequencies declines with age. In addition to hearing, the inner ear manages balance through the vestibular system, which includes 3 semicircular canals and the vestibule. These structures detect head motion and orientation relative to gravity. Fluid movement inside them bends hair cells, triggering signals that help the brain determine body position. Touch is the first sense to develop in the womb and the last to fade before death. It's our most primal link to the world and, fittingly, the most expansive. With roughly 50 touch receptors per square centimeter and about 5 million sensory cells total, the skin is not only the body's largest organ, but also among the most intricate. Touch receptors specialize by function. Mechanoreceptors detect pressure, vibration, and texture. Thermoreceptors respond to temperature changes. Nociceptors perceive pain. Pacinian corpuscles are the largest touch receptors, specializing in sensing deep pressure and high-frequency vibration. They're designed to respond to quick changes. If pressure is steady, they quickly adapt and stop firing. Meissner's corpuscles, located just beneath the epidermis, are concentrated in areas of high tactile acuity: fingertips, palms, soles, lips, tongue, and external genitals. They respond to light touch and low-frequency vibration. Being phasic, they fire when touched, then stop, then fire again when the stimulus is removed. This is why you stop noticing the feeling of clothing on your skin, sensory adaptation. Ruffini corpuscles serve as thermoreceptors and mechanoreceptors, responding to skin stretch. They contribute to kinesthetic sense, awareness of finger position and movement. Free nerve endings, unencapsulated and widely distributed, detect pain, temperature, and crude touch. Together, these specialized structures create a nuanced sense of touch, allowing us not only to feel, but to navigate, interact, and respond with precision to the physical world. The circulatory system is essential to sustaining life, tirelessly delivering oxygen and nutrients to every cell while removing carbon dioxide and metabolic waste. It regulates pH, distributes immune cells, transports hormones, and supports countless physiological processes. When this system falters, often from slow, progressive arterial deterioration, the results can be fatal. Heart attacks and strokes remain leading causes of death worldwide. Technically, the circulatory system includes the heart blood vessels, blood, lymph, and lymphatic vessels. In practice, circulatory and cardiovascular are often used interchangeably, though the latter strictly refers to the heart and blood vessels alone. The heart is about the size of a closed fist. It begins beating within weeks of conception and continues unceasingly until death. Over an average lifetime, it may beat around 3 billion times, roughly 100,000 times per day for an 80-year-old. This relentless pump circulates blood through an estimated 60,000 miles of vessels. Blood carries oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and immune agents while transporting pathogens and waste for disposal. The heart is a hollow muscular organ made of cardiac muscle, a tissue found nowhere else in the body. It sits in the thoracic cavity between the lungs and contains 4 chambers, functioning as a double pump. Cardiac muscle is self-exciting, meaning it initiates its own contractions independent of neural input. However, its rhythm can be influenced by the nervous and endocrine systems. Physical exertion or perceived threat can accelerate heart rate. Arteries carry blood away from the heart. This includes both oxygenated blood in systemic arteries and deoxygenated blood in pulmonary arteries. Their thick 3-layered walls, composed of endothelium, smooth muscle, and connective tissue, withstand and respond to high pressure. Arterial, small branches of arteries lead into capillary networks. They have muscular walls that can contract or dilate to regulate blood pressure and flow. The more arterioles dilate, the lower systemic blood pressure becomes. Capillaries are the smallest vessels, forming connections between arteries and veins. With a combined surface area of approximately 6,300 square meters, they're so widespread that no cell in the body is more than 50 micrometers from one. Capillary walls consist of a single layer of endothelial cells, making them ideally suited for diffusion. Oxygen, water, and lipids pass from blood into tissues. Waste products like carbon dioxide and urea re-enter the blood for disposal. Capillaries are arranged into networks called capillary beds, which can open and close depending on local metabolic demand. This process, called autoregulation, ensures tissues receive blood flow according to their activity level. Veins return blood to the heart. Pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood. Systemic veins transport deoxygenated blood. At any moment, roughly 70% of the body's blood volume resides in the venous system. Veins have the same 3-layered structure as arteries, but with thinner walls, less smooth muscle, and operate under lower pressure. They rely on surrounding skeletal muscles to help push blood upward against gravity. Many contain one-way valves to prevent backflow, particularly in the limbs. When blood pools during long periods of standing or inactivity, it can lead to varicose veins, where veins become enlarged and twisted. Venules, the smallest veins, collect blood from capillary beds and pass it to larger veins. Like arteries and arterioles, they consist of 3 layers but contain less smooth muscle, making them thinner and more flexible. In its entirety, the circulatory system is a vast, efficient network, one that works without pause, from the first heartbeat to the last. The respiratory system is indispensable to life beyond the womb. It ensures oxygen enters the body and carbon dioxide is expelled. With each breath, a coordinated effort of cavities, tubes, and passages moves air to and from the lungs. The path air follows is called the respiratory tract, divided into upper and lower sections. The upper respiratory tract includes the nostrils, nasal cavities, pharynx, epiglottis, and larynx. The lower tract comprises the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and lungs. Air is warmed, moistened, and filtered as it travels. Filtration begins at the nostrils, where coarse hairs trap large particles. Inside the nasal cavity, blood vessels warm the air, and mucus-producing epithelial cells filter finer particles. Cilia, tiny hair-like structures, sweep mucus and debris towards the pharynx, where they're either expelled or swallowed and neutralized by stomach acid. From the nasal cavity, air passes through the pharynx and into the larynx. The larynx or voice box sits just below where the pharynx divides into the trachea and esophagus. It contains the vocal cords, connective tissue folds that vibrate to produce sound, and the epiglottis, a cartilage flap that closes over the trachea during swallowing to prevent aspiration. When the epiglottis fails, choking results. From the larynx, air enters the trachea, a tube supported by incomplete rings of hyaline cartilage that keep the airway open. These rings are open at the back, where smooth muscle allows the trachea to constrict if needed. The trachea is lined with ciliated mucus-secreting epithelium that continues filtering inhaled air. It terminates at the carina, where it splits into right and left primary bronchi. The bronchi branch repeatedly into smaller passages, secondary or lobar bronchi, then tertiary or segmental bronchi, and finally bronchioles. As these branches narrow, cartilage decreases and smooth muscle increases. The smallest bronchioles lead to terminal bronchioles, which connect to respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, and ultimately the alveoli. Alveoli are tiny hollow sacs serving as the lung's functional units. Lined by type 1 pneumocytes, simple squamous cells, they allow rapid gas exchange. Type 2 pneumocytes secrete surfactant, a substance reducing surface tension and preventing alveolar collapse. The lungs contain approximately 300 million alveoli. The lungs themselves are cone-shaped organs in the thoracic cavity. The right lung is larger, divided into 3 lobes: superior, middle, and inferior. It features both horizontal and oblique fissures. The left lung has 2 lobes, superior and inferior, and includes the cardiac notch, an indentation accommodating the heart. At each lung's medial surface is the hilum, where vessels and bronchi enter and exit. Each lung is enveloped by a visceral pleural membrane, while the thoracic cavity is lined by a parietal pleural membrane. These serous membranes secrete pleural fluid, which reduces friction and helps the lungs adhere to the chest wall during breathing. The respiratory system supports 4 key processes: ventilation, breathing; external respiration, gas exchange between lungs and blood; internal respiration, exchange between blood and tissues; and cellular respiration, using oxygen to produce energy in cells. Beyond oxygen delivery and carbon dioxide removal, This system helps regulate blood pH, defends against pathogens, and contributes to thermoregulation through evaporative heat loss during exhalation. From the movement of air to the vibration of vocal cords, from the cilia in nasal passages to the surfactant in alveoli, without the respiratory system, life would be breathless. The immune system is our body's defense infrastructure, a diligent and often underappreciated guardian against a world teeming with pathogens. It operates through two main strategies: nonspecific and specific immunity. Nonspecific immunity, also called innate immunity, doesn't discriminate. It works the same way regardless of the intruder's identity, preventing entry or destroying pathogens outright. This defense includes mechanical barriers, chemical defenses, cellular components, and inflammation. Mechanical barriers are straightforward. Skin and mucous membranes form a physical blockade against pathogens. Beyond acting as walls, they actively remove unwanted substances. Mucus in the respiratory tract moves particles toward the digestive tract. Tears flush irritants from eyes, not elegant but efficient. Chemical substances add another defensive layer. Mucus carries particles to the stomach, where powerful digestive enzymes destroy them. Among chemical defenders are cytokines, proteins secreted by cells to combat pathogens. Interferon is a notable cytokine that binds to cells, prompting them to produce antiviral substances and suppress viral replication. Some interferons rally immune cells like macrophages and natural killer cells. Interleukin-1, another cytokine, induces fever in response to toxins or pathogens, a biological signal that something is amiss. The complement system consists of about 20 plasma proteins designated C1 through C9, along with factors B, D, and P. Once activated, they cascade in a domino effect, producing inflammation, attracting phagocytic white blood cells, and targeting non-self cells for destruction. Inflammation is the hallmark of local immune response, announcing itself with swelling, redness, heat, and pain. It's triggered by tissue damage from trauma, temperature extremes, or chemicals. The goal is increasing blood flow to the site, bringing repair materials and containing invaders. Histamine and heparin, released by mast cells, take the lead. Histamine dilates vessels and makes them more permeable. Heparin slows clotting. Phagocytes rush in, clean up debris, and neutrophils signal fibroblasts to begin repairs. Specific defense or adaptive immunity moves from generalist approaches to targeted strikes. This system identifies specific pathogens and remembers them, launching stronger responses upon future encounters. Adaptive immunity divides into cell-mediated and antibody-mediated branches. In cell-mediated immunity, T lymphocytes, T cells, take center stage. These cells activate when encountering antigens, specifically molecular fragments called antigenic determinants or epitopes. Each T cell carries surface receptors composed of polypeptide chains with variable and constant regions. The variable region binds directly to the epitope, initiating targeted immune response. Major histocompatibility complex molecules, MHCs, play critical roles in this activation. These glycoproteins reside on cell membranes with a variable region designed for antigen binding. There are two main types, MHC class I and MHC class II. MHC class I molecules present antigens produced inside cells, such as viral proteins from infected host cells. These are displayed on the cell's surface, essentially flagging that something's wrong inside, prompting the immune system to destroy the infected cell. MHC class II molecules appear on cells specializing in presenting antigens. These antigens come from outside the cell, entering via endocytosis, then pairing with MHC class II molecules. The resulting complex is displayed on the surface, signaling other immune cells to coordinate responses against identified pathogens. This intricate system of recognition, response, and memory makes adaptive immunity remarkably effective. Once exposed to a pathogen, your immune system remembers it, sometimes for life. This is the principle behind vaccination, introducing a harmless version of a pathogen to train your immune system without causing disease. Which organ is most important? It's a common debate, often reduced to a contest between heart and brain. Rarely does anyone nominate the gastrointestinal tract, even though it spans over 30 feet and plays a role so central that its failure can precipitate slow unraveling of health. The accurate version of "you are what you eat" might be "you are what you digest and absorb." This is the essence of the gastrointestinal system's function. The gastrointestinal tract is a long, continuous tube beginning at the mouth and ending at the anus, passing through the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, duodenum, jejunum, ileum, and large intestine, colon, and rectum. If the body is like a donut, the GI tract is the donut hole, technically outside the internal environment, even as it performs internal functions. Even before food enters your mouth, digestion can begin. The mere sight or smell of food triggers salivation, a preparatory response, signaling what's to come. Once in the system, digestion breaks food down into basic units the body can use. Proteins become amino acids, carbohydrates become simple sugars, fats become fatty acids, and glycerol. This breakdown occurs through mechanical and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion involves physically breaking apart food. It starts with mastication in the mouth and continues with churning in the stomach, reducing food into smaller particles for chemical breakdown. Chemical digestion involves enzymes, biological catalysts, transforming macromolecules into absorbable units. This begins in the mouth with enzymes and saliva and continues throughout the intestines. The digestive system includes both the alimentary canal and accessory organs. The alimentary canal is the tube itself: mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestines. Accessory organs like the liver and pancreas contribute crucial substances. The liver produces bile, an emulsifier, assisting fat digestion. Bile is stored and concentrated in the gallbladder during fasting, released into the small intestine when needed. Food doesn't simply go into the body when swallowed. It passes through the digestive tract, propelled by smooth muscle contractions. Only when nutrients are absorbed through the intestinal wall and enter the bloodstream or lymphatic system can they be considered inside the body. In the small intestine, absorption is key. Nutrients, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals cross the intestinal lining into circulation, where they're delivered to cells throughout the body. In the large intestine, water is reabsorbed along with some minerals. Remaining material is compacted into feces and eventually eliminated through the anus. The small intestine is where most digestion and absorption occur. Its inner surface is covered with tiny finger-like projections called villi, which increase surface area dramatically. Each villus contains a network of capillaries and a lymphatic vessel called a lacteal. Nutrients absorbed here enter either the bloodstream for most nutrients or the lymphatic system for fats. From there, they're transported throughout the body. The large intestine's primary role is water reabsorption. It also houses trillions of bacteria, the gut microbiome, which produce certain vitamins, aid digestion of some materials, and protect against harmful bacteria. This microbiome is increasingly recognized as vital to overall health, affecting everything from immunity to mood to metabolism. The muscular system is the biological engine behind movement in the human body. While not as flashy as the brain nor as rhythmically vital as the heart, it is essential all the same. In vertebrates, this system operates under command of the nervous system, though some operations, such as those of cardiac muscle, function autonomously without input from the central command center. Muscle tissue is contractile in nature, derived from mesoderm during embryonic development. Its primary role is generating force and producing motion. This motion may be external, moving limbs and digits, or internal, the pulsing of the heart or rhythmic squeezing of intestines, known as peristalsis. Much of this goes on entirely without conscious control. Voluntary muscle contraction, such as flexing a bicep, is under direct control, allowing for both precise and broad movements. Muscle is made of individual muscle cells, also called muscle fibers. Inside these cells lie myofibrils, and within those are sarcomeres, the true workhorses of muscle function. Sarcomeres are composed of actin and myosin filaments, which slide past each other to create contraction. Each muscle cell is wrapped in a layer called the endomysium. These cells bundle together into fascicles by a layer called the perimysium. Fascicles group to form complete muscle surrounded by the epimysium. Scattered throughout muscle tissue are muscle spindles, sensory structures reporting to the central nervous system, providing feedback on muscle stretch and position. There are 3 types of muscle tissue: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. Skeletal muscle is organized into distinct groups. The biceps brachii, for instance, is connected to bones by tendons and serves to move parts of the skeleton. There are about 640 skeletal muscles in the human body. Contrary to popular belief, exercise doesn't increase the number of muscle fibers. Rather, it causes existing cells to grow larger, a process called hypertrophy. Smooth muscle appears in nearly every organ. In skin, it makes hair stand on end. In the digestive system and blood vessels, it regulates movement and diameter. Cardiac muscle is found exclusively in the heart, where it keeps things pumping, thankfully without needing conscious reminders. Despite their variety, all muscle types rely on the same fundamental mechanism: actin filaments sliding over myosin to generate contraction and relaxation. Skeletal muscle contractions begin with a nerve signal triggering acetylcholine release at the neuromuscular junction. This chemical messenger generates an action potential along the muscle cell membrane, leading to contraction. Muscular work consumes considerable energy. Muscle tissue stores some locally as glycogen, comprising about 1% of muscle mass. When energy demands increase, glycogen rapidly breaks down into glucose. Skeletal muscle comes in varieties optimized for different work, divided into subtypes based on function, color, and metabolic properties. Type 1 muscle fibers, often called slow oxidative, slow twitch, or red muscle, are densely packed with capillaries and contain high concentrations of mitochondria and myoglobin. This gives tissue its red appearance and allows sustained aerobic activity. It's the type you rely on for endurance tasks like maintaining posture or running marathons. Type 2 fibers, classified as fast twitch, come in several subcategories. Type 2A is aerobic, rich in mitochondria and capillaries, and appears red. It can sustain activity longer than other fast twitch fibers while offering quick response times. Type 2X sacrifices endurance for power. It contains fewer mitochondria and less myoglobin, enabling faster, more forceful contractions. However, it tires quickly, best suited for short, intense efforts. In humans, this is the fastest muscle fiber type, and true type 2B fibers are anaerobic glycolytic and appear white due to low myoglobin content. While rare in humans, they're common in small animals like rodents and rabbits, explaining the pale appearance of their muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle contractions typically result from conscious control. The brain generates an action potential traveling down the nervous system to a motor neuron, which stimulates the muscle fiber to contract. However, not all muscle activity originates in the brain. Reflexes are quick, automatic reactions to unexpected stimuli, coordinated through the spinal cord, bypassing the brain for speed. Muscle contractions occur in three broad categories: skeletal muscle contractions, voluntary movement, cardiac muscle contractions, driving heartbeat, and smooth muscle contractions, keeping digestion, blood flow, and involuntary processes going mercifully without conscious effort. The skeletal system plays a foundational role, not just in support and movement, but also in storage and production. It's a reservoir for calcium and other inorganic salts, and a factory for blood cell formation. The adult human skeleton comprises 206 bones of assorted shapes and sizes, forming a complex, multifunctional structure. Bones come in 4 basic shapes. Long bones, such as the femur, feature a prominent longitudinal axis. Short bones are more cube-like, compact, and efficient. Flat bones are thin and often curved, like those in the skull. Irregular bones defy categorization, often found in clusters with unique varied forms. Examining a typical long bone reveals standard components. The diaphysis, the central shaft, is composed of dense, compact bone and encloses the medullary cavity, which houses bone marrow. On either end is an epiphysis formed of cancellous or spongy bone. The epiphysis is covered with hyaline cartilage, facilitating articulation with neighboring bones. Between diaphysis and epiphysis lies the epiphyseal line, the vestige of the once active growth plate. Encasing the entire bone is the periosteum, a fibrous membrane rich in blood vessels and cellular machinery vital for bone growth and repair. Bone tissue comes in 2 forms: compact, cortical bone, and cancellous, spongy bone. Compact bone is structurally dense, forming the outer shell of most bones. Cancellous bone, with its trabecular or lattice-like matrix, is found primarily in epiphyses of long bones and within flat bones. Despite its airy appearance, cancellous bone is metabolically active and essential for functions like hematopoiesis, the formation of blood cells. Compact bone is arranged into structural units called Haversian systems or osteons. These align with the direction of force, giving bones impressive strength. Each osteon includes a central Haversian canal serving as a passageway for blood vessels and nerves. Around this canal, bone is deposited in concentric layers called lamellae. Within these layers are lacunae, tiny spaces housing osteocytes, the mature bone cells. Canaliculæ extend from each lacuna, forming networks through which nutrients and signals travel. The entire system, is interconnected by larger passageways called Volkmann's canals, or perforating canals, linking one osteon to another. Bone is maintained and remodeled by three main cell types. Osteoblasts arising through mitosis secrete osteoid, a soft matrix that later hardens with mineral deposits. These cells respond to hormones and physical stress, adjusting bone growth accordingly. Once trapped within the matrix they help to build, osteoblasts become osteocytes, which no longer divide but maintain bone tissue. Osteoclasts are the demolition crew. They demineralize bone, releasing calcium into the bloodstream when needed elsewhere. Within the medullary cavity of long bones and in spaces of some spongy bones lies bone marrow. In infants and children, red marrow dominates, producing red blood cells in abundance. With age, much red marrow is replaced by yellow marrow, composed largely of fat cells and less proficient at blood cell production. Nevertheless, several adult bones retain active red marrow, including the proximal ends of the humerus and femur, ribs, vertebral bodies, and pelvis. Structurally, the skeleton divides into two main regions. The axial skeleton includes the skull, spine, rib cage, and sacrum, essentially the central core. The appendicular skeleton comprises the limbs and girdles attaching to and extending from the axial framework. Together, these systems provide stability and mobility, protection, and productivity. The integumentary system is composed of skin, hair, nails, subcutaneous tissue, and various glands. Its most visible role is protection. Skin acts as a barrier against harmful substances and helps retain bodily fluids, performing this function quietly and continuously. Beneath the skin, subcutaneous tissue connects the dermis to deeper tissues like muscle, creating a stable, integrated structure. Hair plays its own small but useful part. On the scalp, it offers insulation. Eyelashes and eyebrows keep dust and sweat from entering eyes. Nasal hairs trap airborne particles before they reach the respiratory tract. Nails protect fingertips and toes from mechanical damage and, with their firm backing, assist in handling small objects. There are 4 types of exocrine glands in this system: sudoriferous, sebaceous, ceruminous, and mammary glands. Sudoriferous glands, responsible for sweat, help regulate body temperature. Sebaceous glands produce oil that inhibits bacterial growth, waterproofs the skin, and prevents drying. Ceruminous glands produce earwax, which maintains ear canal pliability and protects the eardrum. Mammary glands found in breasts produce milk. Skin itself is a complex, multitasking organ. It shields muscles and organs, provides thermal insulation, facilitates sensation, and synthesizes vitamins D and B. It also serves as the first line of defense against pathogens. Melanin produced by melanocytes absorbs ultraviolet radiation and offers some protection from its damaging effects. These cells also contain enzymes that repair UV-induced DNA damage. Without those enzymes, susceptibility to skin cancer rises sharply. Human skin pigmentation varies considerably across populations. When skin is damaged, it repairs itself through scar formation, which may result in discoloration or loss of pigmentation. The skin, often called the largest organ, lives up to the title in both surface area, about 1.5 to 2.0 square meters in average adults, and weight, roughly 15% of body mass. A single square inch holds a dense collection of features, about 650 sweat glands, 20 blood vessels, 60,000 melanocytes, and over 1,000 nerve endings. Structurally, skin has two main layers, the epidermis and dermis. Below these lies the hypodermis or subcutaneous adipose layer, which, while not technically part of the skin, plays a supporting role. The epidermis consists of stratified, squamous, keratinizing epithelium. It lacks blood vessels, receiving nourishment by diffusion from the underlying dermis, is primarily composed of keratinocytes, though melanocytes and Langerhans cells are also present. The epidermis is arranged in strata from outermost to innermost. Stratum, corneum, lucidum, granulosum, spinosum, and basale. New cells form through mitosis in basal layers, migrate upward, change shape and composition, and eventually become part of the outer corneum before being sloughed off, a process called keratinization, taking about 30 days. This layer is vital for retaining body water and keeping harmful agents out. The dermis, located beneath the epidermis, is where much functional machinery resides. Blood vessels, nerve endings, hair follicles, smooth muscles, lymphatic vessels, and glands. It's made of loose areolar connective tissue with collagen, elastin, and reticular fibers, lending strength and flexibility. Attached to each hair follicle is an erector pili muscle that contracts under stress or cold, producing goosebumps. Primary cell types include fibroblasts, producing connective tissue, adipocytes, storing fat, and macrophages, defending against pathogens. Sebaceous glands secrete sebum, a lipid-rich substance that moisturizes, waterproofs, and protects skin with antibacterial properties. Sweat glands open onto the surface via pores, playing central roles in thermoregulation. The dermis divides into two layers. The papillary layer, the upper portion, extends into the epidermis and supplies it with nutrients. It contains loosely arranged fibers and forms ridges on fingers and palms, fingerprints. The deeper reticular layer is more robust, composed of irregularly arranged fibers, anchoring much of the skin's structural components. It connects seamlessly with the underlying hypodermis, resisting stretching and ensuring skin stays in place even under stress. The hypodermis, though not technically part of skin, lies just beneath the dermis and serves several structural and functional roles. It anchors skin to underlying bones and muscles and supplies essential blood vessels and nerves. Composed of loose connective tissue and elastin, its dominant cell types include fibroblasts, macrophages, and adipocytes. The hypodermis holds about 95% of the body's fat, providing insulation and cushioning, soft armor of sorts. The skin performs numerous functions vital to survival. First, it offers protection, acting as an anatomical barrier between internal and external environments. Immune cells like Langerhans cells help fend off microbial invaders. It serves as a highly sensitive sensory surface, detecting heat, cold, pressure, vibration, and injury. In thermoregulation, skin has generous blood supply, allowing nuanced control of heat loss through vasodilation and vasoconstriction. In animals, contraction of tiny erector pili muscles traps heat by raising hairs. In humans, the effect is mostly aesthetic, resulting in goosebumps. Human hair comes in three distinct types. Lanugo is fine, unpigmented hair covering a fetus, mostly replaced by birth. Vellus hair, also unpigmented and soft, is the body's general coating, especially in children and adult females. Terminal hair, by contrast, is longer, thicker, and pigmented, appearing in areas like the scalp, face, especially in males, armpits, and pubic region. Fingernails, made of keratin, perform two key functions: protecting fingertips and enhancing tactile sensation. With high concentrations of nerve endings, fingertips are sensitive tools. The nail acts as a counterforce, increasing pressure when objects are touched, thus heightening sensory feedback. Each nail is composed of 6 defined parts. The root, or germinal matrix, lies beneath the skin and is responsible for most nail production. It lacks melanocytes, which is why the lunula, the white crescent-shaped area at the nail base, is pale. The nail bed, or sterile matrix, supports the nail plate and contributes to its thickness. It contains nerves, blood vessels, and melanin-producing melanocytes. If damaged, nail growth can become distorted. The nail plate is the visible part, composed of translucent keratin. It gets its pinkish hue from the underlying vascular nail bed. Grooves beneath the plate help secure it in place. The eponychium, or cuticle, seals the space between skin and nail plate, forming a waterproof barrier. The perinechium refers to skin on the sides of the nail plate, the common site of hangnails and infections, like paronychia. Finally, the hyponychium lies under the free edge of the nail, providing another barrier between the external environment and fingertip. Sweat glands fall into 2 categories, each with different functions and outputs. Eccrine glands are found all over the body, but are especially concentrated on palms, soles, and forehead. These regulate body temperature by producing sweat, primarily water with salts and waste products. Structurally, they're coiled tubular glands originating in the dermis, emptying directly onto the skin surface. Eccrine glands are activated by sympathetic cholinergic nerves, regulated by the hypothalamus, which monitors core temperature and receives input from skin sensors. Depending on internal and external cues, the hypothalamus adjusts sweat production accordingly. Human eccrine sweat includes small amounts of fatty acids, urea, and other waste products. Sodium concentrations range from 35 to 65 millimoles per liter, tending to be lower in people acclimated to hot climates. Apocrine sweat glands develop around puberty, typically by age 15, initially producing excessive sweat for a short time before settling into regulated patterns. These glands are concentrated in specific regions, particularly armpits and areas surrounding genitals. Unlike eccrine glands, apocrine glands produce sweat containing fatty substances, while secretion itself is odorless. Its breakdown by skin bacteria results in the familiar scent of body odor. Apocrine glands are activated not by heat, but by emotional stress. Their sweat is already present in ducts, released in response to stress signals. In function, they behave more like scent glands than cooling mechanisms. Sebaceous glands are present throughout mammalian skin, with notable exceptions of palms and soles. These glands secrete sebum, an oily substance composed of lipids and remains of disintegrated fat-producing cells. In most body areas, sebaceous glands attach to hair follicles, delivering sebum to the surface via hair shafts. This trio of hair, follicle, and gland is collectively called a pilosebaceous unit. Sebaceous glands are also found in hairless regions: lips, eyelids, genitalia, nipples, where they release sebum through ducts directly onto skin. Sebum's primary functions are lubricating and waterproofing skin and hair, preventing dryness, cracking, and microbial invasion. though odorless when freshly secreted. It can develop odor when broken down by skin bacteria. Accumulated sebum can be seen in oily hair left unwashed for several days and in crusty residue found in eye corners after sleep. In addition to general skin maintenance, sebum contributes to earwax composition. The biochemical makeup of human sebum is roughly 41% triglycerides, 25% wax monoesters, 16% free fatty acids, and 12% squalene. Sebaceous gland activity is stimulated by androgens, which is why oil production typically increases during puberty. This can explain acne that tends to flourish during adolescence. Excess sebum, along with clogged pores, often leads to skin disorders like acne and keratosis pilaris. Blocked glands can form sebaceous cysts. Conditions like acne may be treated with isotretinoin, a medication dramatically reducing sebum output. Conversely, excessive use of anabolic steroids, common among certain bodybuilding circles, can stimulate sebaceous activity and exacerbate acne. In utero, the fetus's sebaceous glands secrete vernix caseosa, a waxy white coating protecting the developing newborn skin. In some species, sebaceous glands have taken on specialized roles. The preputial glands of mice and rats, for instance, are large modified sebaceous glands secreting pheromones. Ceruminous glands are specialized structures in the ear canal producing earwax or cerumen. This yellowish, waxy material serves several protective functions. It helps trap dust and foreign particles, maintains moisture and warded off bacteria, fungi, and even insects. Cerumen is formed in the outer third of the ear canal from a combination of thicker secretions from sebaceous glands and lighter ones from modified apocrine glands. While beneficial in moderation, excess cerumen can accumulate, pressing against the eardrum or blocking the ear canal, leading to impaired hearing. Earwax comes in two genetically distinct types, wet and dry. The wet type, moist and ranging from honey brown to dark brown, is dominant and more commonly found among individuals of African and Caucasian descent. The dry type, gray and flaky, is recessive and predominantly found in people of East Asian and Native American ancestry. Interestingly, anthropologists have used cerumen type to trace ancient human migratory patterns, including those of the Inuit. This difference in earwax type has been traced to a single nucleotide polymorphism in the ATP binding cassette, C11 gene. Beyond affecting cerumen composition, this genetic variation also reduces sweat production, a change thought advantageous for ancestors of East Asians and Native Americans who likely inhabited colder climates. Cleaning of the ear canal is a self-sustaining process, relying on conveyor belt migration of epithelial cells beginning at the tympanic membrane center and moving outward to the ear canal's entrance. The rate of this migration is comparable to fingernail growth. As cells move outward, they carry cerumen and any debris it has collected toward the external opening. Jaw movement helps dislodge particles stuck to canal walls, enhancing this natural self-cleaning process. Lubrication provided by cerumen is critical. It prevents drying and itching of skin within the ear canal, a condition known as astiotosis. This lubricating quality is due to high lipid content of sebum, which in wet-type cerumen includes cholesterol, squalene, and long-chain fatty acids and alcohols. Cerumen also has antibacterial and antifungal properties. Although early research was inconclusive, more recent studies show cerumen is effective in reducing viability of various bacteria, including Haemophilus influenzae, Staphylococcus aureus, and several Escherichia coli strains, sometimes by as much as 99%. It also inhibits growth of fungi associated with automycosis. These protective effects are largely due to saturated fatty acids, the enzyme lysozyme, and cerumen's mildly acidic pH, typically around 6.1. Mammary glands are specialized organs found in female mammals for milk production. These are enlarged and modified sweat glands, fitting since they're part of the integumentary system and the very feature from which mammals take their name. Each mammary gland is composed of alveoli, small hollow structures lined with milk-secreting epithelial cells. These are surrounded by contractile myoepithelial cells. Alveoli group into lobules, each draining into a lactiferous duct opening at the nipple. When myoepithelial cells contract, they push milk through ducts into small reservoirs called sinuses, which collect milk until expelled, typically by pressure of a suckling infant. A simple mammary gland includes all milk-producing tissue draining into a single duct. A complex mammary gland encompasses all simple glands serving a single nipple. Humans typically have 2 complex glands, one in each breast, each composed of 10 to 20 simple glands. Occasionally, individuals have extra nipples, polythelia, or extra complex glands, polymastia, both benign anomalies. Mammary gland development is hormonally driven. Though present in both sexes, these glands remain rudimentary until puberty. Estrogen stimulates development in females, whereas testosterone suppresses it in males. At birth, infants have only lactiferous ducts. True development of alveoli, branching ducts, occurs at puberty under influence of ovarian hormones. During pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone cause further alveolar development, an increase in adipose tissue, and enhanced blood flow to the region. In late pregnancy and shortly after birth, glands secrete colostrum, a nutrient-rich pre-milk fluid. Full lactation begins a few days postpartum as progesterone levels fall and prolactin takes over. The act of nursing stimulates oxytocin release, which causes myoepithelial cells to contract, effectively squeezing milk out to meet its eager recipient. The urinary system is essential for maintaining the body's chemical balance. It filters blood, removes waste products, regulates water and electrolyte balance, and helps control blood pressure and pH. This system consists of 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, the urinary bladder, and the urethra. The kidneys are bean-shaped organs located on either side of the vertebral column, just below the rib cage. Each kidney is about the size of a fist and weighs approximately 150 grams. The kidney's primary function is filtering blood. Every day your kidneys process about 180 liters of blood, producing approximately 1.5 liters of urine. Structurally, each kidney has an outer cortex and inner medulla. The medulla is divided into pyramid-shaped structures. At the center of each kidney is the renal pelvis, which collects urine and funnels it into the ureter. The functional unit of the kidney is the nephron. Each kidney contains about 1 million nephrons. Each nephron consists of a glomerulus, a cluster of capillaries, and a renal tubule. Blood enters the glomerulus under high pressure. This pressure forces water and small molecules through the capillary walls into the renal tubule, forming filtrate. Large molecules like proteins and blood cells remain in the bloodstream. As filtrate passes through the renal tubule, the body reclaims useful substances, water, glucose, amino acids, and ions, reabsorbing them back into the bloodstream. Waste products and excess substances remain in the tubule, becoming urine. The nephron also secretes certain waste products directly from blood into the tubule, further purifying the bloodstream. This three-step process, filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, produces urine while maintaining precise control over blood composition. From the kidneys, urine travels through the ureters, muscular tubes about 25 to 30 centimeters long. Smooth muscle contractions propel urine toward the bladder in wave-like motions. The urinary bladder is a hollow muscular organ that stores urine until elimination. It can hold 400 to 600 milliliters of urine comfortably, though capacity varies. The bladder wall contains stretch receptors. As the bladder fills, these receptors signal the nervous system, creating the sensation of needing to urinate. During urination, the bladder's smooth muscle contracts, while sphincter muscles at the bladder's exit relax, allowing urine to flow into the urethra. The urethra is the tube through which urine exits the body. In females, it's relatively short, about 4 centimeters. In males, it's longer, about 20 centimeters, and also serves as a passage for semen. Beyond waste removal, the urinary system plays crucial roles in homeostasis. It regulates blood volume and pressure. When blood pressure is low, the kidneys release renin, triggering a cascade that increases blood volume and pressure. It maintains pH balance. The kidneys can excrete hydrogen ions and reabsorb bicarbonate, helping keep blood pH within the narrow range necessary for life. It regulates electrolyte concentrations. Sodium, potassium, calcium, and other ions are carefully balanced through selective reabsorption and excretion. It also produces hormones. The kidneys produce erythropoietin, which stimulates red blood cell production, and activate vitamin D, essential for calcium absorption. Without the urinary system, waste products would accumulate to toxic levels. Blood pressure would become erratic and pH would drift dangerously. It's a quiet but indispensable system, working continuously to keep your internal environment stable. The lymphatic system is often overlooked, yet it plays vital roles in fluid balance and immune function. It consists of lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, and lymphoid organs, including the spleen, thymus, and tonsils. Lymph is a clear fluid derived from blood plasma. As blood circulates through capillaries, some plasma leaks into surrounding tissues, becoming interstitial fluid. Most of this fluid returns to the bloodstream through capillaries, but some enters lymphatic capillaries, becoming lymph. Lymphatic capillaries are found throughout the body, forming networks in most tissues. These vessels are slightly larger and more permeable than blood capillaries. From lymphatic capillaries, lymph flows into larger lymphatic vessels, which eventually drain into two main ducts, the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct. These ducts empty lymph back into the bloodstream near the heart. Lymphatic vessels, like veins, contain one-way valves preventing backflow. Because there's no pump like the heart, lymph movement depends on skeletal muscle contractions and breathing movements. The lymphatic system returns about 3 liters of fluid to the bloodstream daily. Without it, fluid would accumulate in tissues, causing severe swelling, a condition called lymphedema. Lymph nodes are small, bean-shaped structures scattered along lymphatic vessels. Humans have 500 to 600 lymph nodes, concentrated in areas like the neck, armpits, groin, and abdomen. Lymph nodes serve as filtering stations. As lymph passes through them, immune cells called lymphocytes inspect it for pathogens, abnormal cells, and foreign particles. If threats are detected, lymphocytes multiply rapidly, mounting immune responses. This is why lymph nodes often swell during infections. They're working overtime to fight invaders. The spleen, located in the upper left abdomen, filters blood much like lymph nodes filter lymph. It removes old or damaged red blood cells, stores platelets, and houses immune cells. The thymus, located in the chest behind the sternum, is where T lymphocytes mature. It's most active during childhood and gradually shrinks with age. Tonsils, located at the back of the throat, defend against pathogens entering through the mouth and nose. They're part of the body's first line of defense. The spleen, located in the upper left abdomen, filters blood much like lymph nodes filter lymph. It removes old or damaged red blood cells, stores platelets, and houses immune cells. The spleen is roughly the size of a fist and weighs about 150 grams. It has a rich blood supply and soft, spongy texture. The spleen consists of two types of tissue, white pulp and red pulp. White pulp contains lymphocytes and other immune cells. It monitors blood for pathogens and mounts immune responses when threats are detected. This is where antibodies are produced and where immune cells multiply during infections. Red pulp filters blood, removing worn-out red blood cells and recycling their components. Iron from hemoglobin is salvaged and reused. The spleen also stores platelets. About 1/3 of your body's platelet supply resides here, ready to be released if bleeding occurs. Though you can live without a spleen if it's removed due to injury or disease, you become more susceptible to certain infections, particularly from encapsulated bacteria. The thymus, located in the chest behind the sternum, is where T lymphocytes mature. It's most active during childhood and gradually shrinks with age, becoming largely replaced by fatty tissue in adults. During childhood, the thymus is crucial for developing a competent immune system. Immature T cells migrate from bone marrow to the thymus, where they undergo selection processes. Those that can recognize foreign antigens but don't attack the body's own tissues survive. The rest are eliminated. This selection process is critical. Without it, T cells might attack your own tissues, causing autoimmune diseases. Tonsils, located at the back of the throat, defend against pathogens entering through the mouth and nose. They're part of the body's first line of defense. There are actually 3 types of tonsils: palatine tonsils on either side of the throat, the pharyngeal tonsil, adenoids, at the back of the nasal cavity, and lingual tonsils at the base of the tongue. Together they form a ring of lymphoid tissue called Waldeyer's ring. Tonsils contain immune cells that sample pathogens and mount responses. When they become overwhelmed, often in childhood, they can become chronically infected and swollen, sometimes requiring removal. The lymphatic system and immune system are deeply interconnected. Lymphatic vessels transport immune cells throughout the body, allowing rapid response to infections wherever they occur. Lymph also carries absorbed fats from the small intestine to the bloodstream. Special lymphatic vessels in the intestinal wall, called lacteals, absorb dietary fats that are too large to enter blood capillaries directly. Together, these systems form a comprehensive defense and drainage network, protecting you from countless threats every day while maintaining fluid balance. We've touched on homeostasis throughout our journey, but let's explore some specific mechanisms in greater detail. These are the quiet, constant adjustments your body makes to maintain stability. Blood pressure must be carefully regulated. Too high and it damages blood vessels, strains the heart, and increases risk of stroke. Too low, and organs don't receive adequate blood flow. Several systems collaborate to maintain appropriate blood pressure. Baroreceptors, pressure sensors, are located in the carotid arteries and aorta. These detect changes in blood pressure and send signals to the brain. If blood pressure rises, the brain responds by decreasing heart rate and dilating blood vessels, lowering pressure. If pressure drops, the brain increases heart rate and constricts blood vessels. The kidneys also participate. When blood pressure is low, they release an enzyme called renin. This triggers a cascade of events. Renin converts a protein in the blood into angiotensin first, which is then converted to angiotensin II. Angiotensin II is a powerful vasoconstrictor. It narrows blood vessels, increasing pressure. It also stimulates aldosterone release from the adrenal glands. Aldosterone tells the kidneys to retain sodium and water, increasing blood volume and thus pressure. When blood pressure is high, the heart releases a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide, or ANP. This hormone tells the kidneys to excrete more sodium and water, reducing blood volume and lowering pressure. These mechanisms operate continuously, making minute adjustments to keep your blood pressure within healthy ranges, despite changes in activity, posture, hydration, and stress levels. Your blood pH must remain between 7.35 and 7.45. Even small deviations can be dangerous. Below 7.35 is acidosis. Above 7.45 is alkalosis. Both can impair enzyme function, disrupt cellular processes, and if severe, prove fatal. Several buffer systems help maintain pH. The bicarbonate buffer system is the primary one in blood. It consists of carbonic acid and bicarbonate ions. When blood becomes too acidic, bicarbonate ions absorb excess hydrogen ions. When blood becomes too alkaline, carbonic acid releases hydrogen ions. The respiratory system provides rapid pH adjustment. When blood becomes acidic, breathing rate increases, expelling more carbon dioxide, which is acidic when dissolved in blood. When blood becomes alkaline, breathing slows, retaining carbon dioxide. The kidneys provide slower but more powerful pH regulation. They can excrete hydrogen ions in urine, making urine acidic and blood more alkaline, or they can excrete bicarbonate, making urine alkaline and blood more acidic. These three mechanisms, chemical buffers, respiratory adjustment, and renal regulation, work together to maintain the narrow pH range necessary for life. We discussed temperature regulation earlier, but let's examine the mechanisms more closely. Your hypothalamus acts as a thermostat, constantly monitoring body temperature through thermoreceptors in the skin and internal organs. It has a set point around 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and activates mechanisms to maintain this temperature. When you're too warm, several responses activate. Blood vessels in the skin dilate, a process called vasodilation. This brings more warm blood to the skin surface where heat radiates into the environment. This is why you flush when hot. Sweat glands activate, releasing moisture onto the skin. As sweat evaporates, it absorbs heat energy, cooling the skin and underlying blood. Metabolic rate may decrease slightly, reducing internal heat production. Behavioral responses also occur. You might remove clothing, seek shade, or drink cold fluids. When your two cold opposite responses activate, blood vessels in the skin constrict, vasoconstriction. This reduces blood flow to the skin, conserving heat in the body's core. This is why extremities feel cold first. They're being sacrificed to preserve core temperature. Skeletal muscles begin shivering. Rapid involuntary contractions that generate heat through increased metabolic activity. Metabolic rate increases sometimes dramatically. This is partly due to increased thyroid hormone release, which stimulates cellular metabolism throughout the body. Erector pili muscles contract, making hairs stand up. In furry animals, this traps an insulating layer of air. In humans, it just produces goosebumps, a vestigial response from our hairier ancestors. Behavioral responses include putting on warm clothing, seeking shelter, consuming hot food or drinks, and physical activity to generate heat. Interestingly, newborn infants have an additional mechanism, brown adipose tissue or brown fat. Unlike regular white fat, which stores energy, brown fat burns energy to generate heat. Adults have very little brown fat, though recent research suggests we retain more than previously thought, particularly in the neck and shoulders. Blood glucose regulation is critical. Too little glucose, hypoglycemia, starves cells of energy, particularly affecting the brain, which relies almost exclusively on glucose. Too much hyperglycemia damages blood vessels and organs over time. After you eat, blood glucose rises. The pancreas detects this and releases insulin from beta cells in the pancreatic islets. Insulin acts like a key, unlocking cells and allowing glucose to enter. It particularly affects muscle cells, liver cells, and fat cells. These cells absorb glucose from the bloodstream, lowering blood glucose levels. Insulin also tells the liver to convert glucose into glycogen for storage. It promotes fat synthesis and inhibits fat breakdown. Essentially, insulin is a storage hormone, activated when resources are abundant. Between meals, blood glucose gradually falls. The pancreas detects this and releases glucagon from alpha cells. Glucagon has opposite effects to insulin. It tells the liver to break down stored glycogen into glucose and release it into the bloodstream. It also promotes gluconeogenesis, the creation of new glucose from amino acids and other molecules. Glucagon promotes fat breakdown, releasing fatty acids that cells can use for energy, sparing glucose for the brain. These two hormones, insulin and glucagon, work in opposition, constantly adjusting to keep blood glucose stable, despite intermittent food intake. Other hormones also affect glucose. Cortisol, released during stress, raises blood glucose. Growth hormone does the same. Epinephrine, released during the fight-or-flight response, causes rapid glucose release for immediate energy. In diabetes mellitus, this regulation fails. In type 1 diabetes, the immune system destroys pancreatic beta cells, eliminating insulin production. In type 2 diabetes, cells become resistant to insulin's effects, requiring ever-increasing amounts to achieve the same result. Without proper regulation, blood glucose swings wildly, causing both immediate symptoms and long-term complications affecting the eyes, kidneys, nerves, and blood vessels. Understanding how systems work normally helps us understand what happens when they malfunction. Let's explore some common disorders affecting major systems. Atherosclerosis is the gradual buildup of plaques. deposits of cholesterol, fat, calcium, and other substances in arterial walls. These plaques narrow arteries, reducing blood flow. If a plaque ruptures, it can trigger blood clot formation, completely blocking the vessel. When this occurs in coronary arteries supplying the heart, it causes myocardial infarction, a heart attack. Heart muscle deprived of oxygen dies, permanently weakening the heart. When it occurs in arteries supplying the brain, it causes ischemic stroke. Brain tissue dies, often resulting in paralysis, speech problems, or cognitive impairment, depending on which area is affected. Hypertension, chronic high blood pressure, often has no symptoms but silently damages blood vessels throughout the body. It forces the heart to work harder, eventually causing the heart muscle to thicken and weaken. It damages kidneys, eyes, and increases stroke risk. Heart failure doesn't mean the heart stops completely. It means the heart can't pump efficiently enough to meet the body's needs. Fluid backs up into the lungs and tissues, causing shortness of breath and swelling. Arrhythmias are abnormal heart rhythms. Some are benign, others are life-threatening. Atrial fibrillation, where the upper chambers quiver chaotically rather than contracting effectively, is common in older adults and increases stroke risk. Asthma involves chronic inflammation and hyperresponsiveness of the airways, triggers, allergens, exercise, cold air, stress, cause airways to narrow, making breathing difficult. Wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath result. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, includes chronic bronchitis and emphysema. Usually caused by smoking, COPD progressively destroys lung tissue. Airways become inflamed and narrow. Alveoli are damaged and lose elasticity. Breathing becomes increasingly difficult. Pneumonia is infection of the alveoli, usually bacterial or viral. Infected alveoli fill with fluid and pus, impairing gas exchange. Symptoms include cough, fever, chest pain, and difficulty breathing. Lung cancer, often caused by smoking, can arise in airways or lung tissue. It may spread to other organs before causing noticeable symptoms, making early detection challenging. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, occurs when stomach acid repeatedly flows back into the esophagus. The esophagus lacks the stomach's protective lining, so acid causes burning pain, heartburn, and can damage tissue over time. Peptic ulcers are sores in the lining of the stomach or duodenum, often caused by Helicobacter pylori bacteria or overuse of NSAIDs like aspirin. They cause burning pain, especially when the stomach is empty. Inflammatory bowel diseases, including Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, involve chronic inflammation of the digestive tract. Symptoms include abdominal pain, diarrhea, weight loss, and fatigue. Causes aren't fully understood, but likely involve immune system dysfunction. Irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, causes abdominal pain, bloating, and altered bowel habits without visible inflammation or damage. It's a functional disorder. The gut works abnormally, but appears normal on tests. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disorder where gluten, a protein in wheat, barley, and rye, triggers immune attack on the small intestine's lining. This damages villi, impairing nutrient absorption. Alzheimer's disease is progressive neurodegeneration causing memory loss, confusion, and personality changes. Abnormal protein deposits, plaques, and tangles accumulate in the brain, killing neurons. It's the most common cause of dementia. Parkinson's disease involves death of dopamine-producing neurons in the brain. This causes tremors, rigidity, slow movement, and balance problems. Dopamine is crucial for coordinating movement. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks myelin, the insulating sheath around nerve fibers. This disrupts signal transmission, causing weakness, numbness, vision problems, and fatigue. Epilepsy involves recurrent seizures, sudden bursts of abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Seizures vary from brief lapses in awareness to violent convulsions. Stroke, as mentioned earlier, occurs when blood supply to part of the brain is interrupted either by a clot, ischemic stroke, or bleeding, hemorrhagic stroke. Brain tissue dies rapidly without oxygen. We've discussed diabetes. Thyroid disorders are also common. Hyperthyroidism, overactive thyroid, speeds up metabolism. Symptoms include weight loss, rapid heartbeat, anxiety, tremor, and heat intolerance. Hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid, slows metabolism. Symptoms include weight gain, fatigue, cold intolerance, depression, and constipation. Cushing's syndrome results from excessive cortisol, often due to tumors or long-term steroid use. It causes weight gain, particularly in the face and trunk. High blood pressure, diabetes, and weakened bones. Addison's disease is the opposite. Insufficient cortisol and aldosterone production. It causes fatigue, weight loss, low blood pressure, and darkening of skin. Osteoporosis involves progressive bone loss, making bones fragile and prone to fractures. It's particularly common in postmenopausal women due to declining estrogen levels. Osteoarthritis is wear and tear damage to joint cartilage. As cartilage degenerates, bones rub together, causing pain, stiffness, and swelling. It typically affects weight-bearing joints, knees, hips, spine. Rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmune inflammation of joint linings. Unlike osteoarthritis, it often affects hands and feet symmetrically and can occur at any age. Muscular dystrophies are genetic disorders causing progressive muscle weakness and degeneration. Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the most common type, primarily affects boys and usually appears in early childhood. Understanding these disorders reinforces how remarkable it is when systems function properly. Health requires countless processes working correctly, simultaneously, continuously. We began our journey discussing cells, tissues, and organization. Let's return to the cellular level for a deeper exploration. Every cell is enclosed by a plasma membrane, a phospholipid bilayer studded with proteins. This membrane is selectively permeable, controlling what enters and exits. Some substances cross freely by diffusion, moving from areas of high concentration to low concentration. Oxygen and carbon dioxide diffuse easily across membranes. Other substances require transport proteins. These proteins act as channels or carriers, facilitating movement of specific molecules. Some transport is passive, following concentration gradients. Other transport is active, requiring energy to move substances against gradients. The sodium-potassium pump is a classic example of active transport. It pumps sodium out of cells and potassium into cells, both against their concentration gradients. This maintains electrical potential across the membrane, crucial for nerve and muscle function. Inside the cell, the cytoplasm is a gel-like substance filling the space between the membrane and nucleus. It contains cytosol, the liquid component, and organelles. The nucleus houses genetic material, DNA organized into chromosomes. DNA contains instructions for making proteins, which perform most cellular functions. When a cell needs a particular protein, It transcribes the relevant gene from DNA into messenger RNA, mRNA. This mRNA exits the nucleus and travels to ribosomes, where it's translated into protein. Ribosomes are molecular machines that assemble amino acids into protein chains according to mRNA instructions. Some ribosomes float freely in cytoplasm. Others attach to the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, is a network of membranous tubules and sacs. Rough ER, studded with ribosomes, produces proteins destined for export or for use in membranes. Smooth ER synthesizes lipids and detoxifies harmful substances. The Golgi apparatus receives proteins from the ER, modifies them, packages them into vesicles, and ships them to their destinations, either within the cell or outside it. Mitochondria are the cell's power plants. They produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of cells. Through cellular respiration, mitochondria extract energy from glucose and oxygen, producing ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. Interestingly, mitochondria have their own DNA, separate from nuclear DNA. They likely originated as independent bacteria that were engulfed by ancestral cells billions of years ago, establishing a symbiotic relationship that persists today. Lysosomes contain digestive enzymes that break down worn-out organelles, bacteria, and other materials. They're the cell's recycling centers. The cytoskeleton is a network of protein filaments providing structural support, maintaining cell shape, and enabling cell movement. It includes microfilaments, intermediate filaments, and microtubules. Microtubules, the largest filaments, form tracks along which vesicles and organelles move within cells. They also form the spindle apparatus that separates chromosomes during cell division. Cells reproduce through cell division. Most cells divide by mitosis, producing two identical daughter cells. During mitosis, DNA is first replicated so each daughter cell receives a complete set of genetic information. Then the replicated chromosomes condense, align in the cell's center, and are pulled apart to opposite ends. Finally, the cell divides, creating two cells. This process is carefully controlled. Cells divide when needed for growth, repair, or replacement, and stop when appropriate. Loss of this control can lead to cancer, unregulated cell division. Gametes, sperm and eggs, are produced through a different process called meiosis. This produces 4 cells, each with half the normal chromosome number. When sperm and egg unite during fertilization, the full chromosome number is restored. During development, cells become specialized, a process called differentiation. A fertilized egg divides repeatedly, and its descendants gradually acquire specialized structures and functions. Muscle cells develop contractile proteins. Nerve cells extend long processes for signal transmission. Red blood cells lose their nuclei to maximize space for hemoglobin. Remarkably, nearly all cells in your body contain identical DNA. What differs is which genes are active. Muscle cells activate muscle genes. Nerve cells activate nerve genes. This selective gene expression, controlled by complex regulatory mechanisms, produces over 200 different cell types from a single genome. Stem cells are undifferentiated cells capable of dividing and producing specialized cells. Embryonic stem cells can become any cell type. Adult stem cells, found in various tissues, are more limited but still important for tissue repair and maintenance. As we age, all body systems gradually decline. Understanding these changes helps us age more gracefully and maintain health longer. Cells have limited lifespans. Each time a cell divides, telomeres, protective caps on chromosome ends, shorten slightly. After many divisions, telomeres become critically short, and cells can no longer divide. They enter senescence or die. This limit on cell division, the Hayflick limit, contributes to aging. Tissues lose their ability to regenerate effectively. Cellular damage accumulates over time. Free radicals, unstable molecules produced during metabolism damage DNA, proteins, and lipids. Though cells have repair mechanisms, some damage escapes repair and accumulates. Mitochondrial function declines with age. They produce less ATP and more free radicals, creating a vicious cycle of declining energy production and increasing damage. In the cardiovascular system, arteries stiffen and narrow. The heart muscle weakens slightly. Maximum heart rate decreases. Overall cardiovascular capacity declines, reducing exercise tolerance. In the respiratory system, lung tissue loses elasticity, chest wall stiffens, respiratory muscles weaken. Vital capacity, the maximum amount of air you can exhale, decreases. In the nervous system, neurons die and aren't replaced. Processing speed slows. Memory, especially for new information, may decline, reflexes slow. However, wisdom and accumulated knowledge often increase. In the musculoskeletal system, bones lose density, muscle mass decreases, and flexibility declines. Joints stiffen, strength and endurance decrease. In the immune system, function declines. The thymus shrinks, reducing T-cell production. Immune responses slow. Susceptibility to infections increases, as does cancer risk. In the endocrine system, hormone production changes. Growth hormone declines. Women experience menopause as ovaries stop producing estrogen. Men experience gradual testosterone decline. In sensory systems, vision and hearing decline. Lenses stiffen, making focusing difficult. High-frequency hearing loss is common. Taste and smell sensitivity decrease. While aging is inevitable, its rate varies considerably among individuals. Genetics play a role, but lifestyle factors matter enormously. Regular exercise maintains muscle mass, bone density, cardiovascular health, and even cognitive function. It doesn't have to be intense. Moderate activity like walking, swimming, or cycling provides substantial benefits. Nutrition matters. Diets rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins support health. Excessive calories, processed foods, and added sugars accelerate aging. Not smoking is perhaps the single best thing you can do for longevity. Smoking accelerates aging in nearly every system. Managing stress, maintaining social connections, getting adequate sleep, and staying mentally active all contribute to healthy aging. The body you have at 80 is shaped not just by genetics, but by decades of choices. Small, consistent, healthy behaviors compound over time, dramatically affecting quality of life in later years. Humans aren't solitary organisms. We're ecosystems, hosting trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms, collectively called the microbiome. Most of these microbes reside in your large intestine. Their bacteria outnumber your own cells. In fact, bacterial cells in your body outnumber human cells, though they're much smaller. This might sound alarming, but it's not. Most of these microbes are beneficial, even essential. Gut bacteria help digest foods you otherwise couldn't. They produce vitamins, including vitamin K, and several B vitamins. They train your immune system, helping it distinguish friends from foes. They produce chemicals that influence mood and behavior. The The composition of your microbiome affects your health profoundly. Disrupted microbiomes are linked to obesity, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, allergies, asthma, and even depression and anxiety. Antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, kill beneficial bacteria along with harmful ones. This can disrupt the microbiome for months. Probiotics, beneficial bacteria, and prebiotics, foods that feed beneficial bacteria, may help restore balance. Your microbiome is unique, shaped by genetics, diet, environment, medications, and life experiences. It begins forming at birth. Babies born vaginally acquire different initial bacteria than those born by cesarean section. Breastfed infants develop different microbiomes than formula-fed infants. Diet powerfully shapes the microbiome. Fiber feeds beneficial bacteria, helping them thrive. Diets high in processed foods and low in fiber promote less beneficial bacterial populations. The microbiome isn't limited to the gut. Your skin, mouth, respiratory tract, and urogenital tract each host distinct bacterial communities. We're only beginning to understand the microbiome's importance. It's clear, though, that we're not individuals but communities. Human cells working in partnership with microbial cells for mutual benefit. We've completed our journey through the human body. From microscopic cells to entire organ systems, from chemical reactions to complex behaviors, we've explored the structures and processes that sustain life. Perhaps the most striking theme is integration. Nothing works alone. Every cell depends on others. Every system relies on partners. The body is not a collection of parts, but an orchestra, each instrument contributing to an extraordinary symphony. Consider the simple act of reading these words, or in your case, hearing them. Light from the screen enters your eyes, where photoreceptors convert it into electrical signals. These signals travel via the optic nerve to your brain, where visual cortex processes them into images. Language centers interpret these images as words, accessing memories to extract meaning. Meanwhile, your heart beats, circulating blood to deliver oxygen to neurons consuming energy as they process information. Your lungs breathe, acquiring that oxygen. Your digestive system provides glucose fuel. Your endocrine system maintains hormone balance. Your immune system protects against pathogens. Your musculoskeletal system holds you upright. All of this happens simultaneously, seamlessly, beneath conscious awareness. You are an impossibly complex biological machine, yet you operate effortlessly. You don't think about maintaining blood pH, regulating body temperature, coordinating muscle contractions, or filtering blood. Your body handles it automatically. This automatic regulation frees your conscious mind for higher pursuits, thinking, creating, relating to others, experiencing beauty, finding meaning. Your body is a gift, crafted by billions of years of evolution. Every system has been refined through countless generations. What works persists. What doesn't disappears. You're the inheritor of this long process, a living masterpiece of biological engineering. Treat it well, feed it properly, move it regularly, rest it adequately, protect it from harm. In return, it will serve you faithfully for decades, supporting every experience, every relationship, every accomplishment in your life. As you drift towards sleep tonight, take a moment to appreciate this extraordinary organism you inhabit. Feel your heartbeat. Notice your breath. Sense your body's weight against the bed. All of these sensations arise from billions of cells working together, systems coordinating, life persisting. You are alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. And that is worth marveling at.
Rest now. Your body will continue its work through the night, maintaining, repairing, sustaining. Trust it. It knows what to do. Good night.